We could use about 4 or 5 days, no rain, and do the same thing all over again.
Yep. Yeah, this helped everything out. Trees, bushes, grass.
Yeah, we had one bush.
Farmers.
Yeah.
We had this one bush where I said, I'm gonna start watering it after, if we don't get some rain. That was like on Saturday. Then the rain came and we went outside. Oh my God. What the hell just happened to the, it's just like,
Yep. Yeah, I noticed a couple in my front yard. I got to trim.
yeah,
Just went nuts.
yeah.
I would send to Sean. Sean. Okay, it's 4 o'clock. We ready to go? It's 4 o'clock. Let's get the commission meeting under control here and to order. Roll call. Sean, can you do roll call? Well, so Sean, since he's on mute, I'll do it. John Eisman.
Here.
Joseph Hoykens. Sean Connell. Sean Connell appears to be online. Matthew Brish.
Here.
Ryan Veenstra here. Rich Phelan.
Here.
Bill Mishevitz. Here. David Vickers. I know Dave's trying to get on. I got a text from him. Aaron George.
Here.
Don Hanson.
Here.
And then alternate Kenyon Clark. Not here. Okay. We got the roll call done. Minutes. Sean has typed up the minutes. I put it on the desk for you to review. Since you just received them, take a few seconds and review those.
I move that the minutes be accepted as presented.
Second.
Motion from John Eisman, second Aaron George. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign.
All right. You're going to have to excuse me. I told Sean I'd help him with the minutes today, and I'm going to send him some notes. So who made the motion?
I did.
John Eisman, George, second. Next, any communications or new communication contact from anybody? I didn't see any. Sean, did you get any?
I did not. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay.
Okay, seeing no communication or contact. Any audience comment? Seeing none. I think we'll go into our review segment. Did you receive, I noticed I printed it off. Did you guys receive the outline from? Put it on the desk. What's that again?
I think maybe he's talking to somebody in his office.
Did you receive the outline from the city attorney? Did you guys receive this?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I must have missed it, I didn't see it. Was that an email?
It was email. I don't know when it was. I just printed it this afternoon.
You're on
Oh,
a different,
here's A.
yep.
There we go.
I think this is a good start, but I don't really want to spend a bunch of time on it because, of course, our city attorney is going to have to go through the whole thing.
Yeah, I'd suggest, we
Yep.
hold a lot of a review until.
Yep. Okay.
I thought this came from Dave, though.
I thought it did as well. We'll make sure. Hey, Sean, will you can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, I'm having some difficulties here. Yeah.
That's okay. Will you make sure that everybody received that email with the Word document of the submitted outline by legal counsel?
Yes.
Awesome.
I think that came from Dave, though, didn't it?
It did.
It could have.
Yeah, that's
yes,
what
it did.
That's what I got it under.
Okay. Make sure everybody gets
Yeah, I
that.
have the one from Dave. This is where he's suggesting different wording for different sections, correct?
Yeah, it came on an email from him on May 15th.
Okay.
Okay.
Excellent. Let's see, let's go. And then Dave's not, I wanted to make sure, I wanted to bring this up if Dave was online. Did you all receive an email a couple days ago about him reaching out to a couple city administrators?
Yes.
And I kind of wanted to have a little I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I wanted to have a little conversation about how we wanted to handle that. When we originally started, I know that we were only going to open up for public comment for 15 minutes and no more than 3 minutes per person. I kind of felt that when we invite these other people, we could get bogged down with too many opinions, I guess, per se, where I would prefer them to email us or give us their suggestions, not bogging up our debate time with that. That's just my opinion of it.
So we can read it ahead of time, you mean?
Correct.
Okay.
Ryan, I agree with you, and I wouldn't mind hearing again from the gentleman from the League of Cities at some point. I think that person is in a good position to have a perspective of the entire state. And certainly if we can get written input from other people, that's fine. Like Cody did a couple of weeks ago. So.
Yeah, and it could just be something as simple as, I know we were talking about, was it Steve Linder was on the list? And maybe just his experiences and what he sees as a successful setup for a city and his experience and what worked and what didn't and things like that, that we can read through it and then we'll have questions to ask, but he doesn't have to spend that whole time giving us all that information.
Yeah, so, and Dave, I know you're not connected, but I'd like to have him the opportunity to explain himself on that, on why he thinks that would be important. But, even, I don't want to say it's alarming, but I find it kind of interesting that, we voted the last meeting to go from 7 to 5 council members. So we literally like pink slipped 2 council members and not one of them has reached out to say, hey, why did you do that,
I talked to darn it, Aaron, I can't say his name. Main Avenue, Phillips Station.
Oh, Pat.
Pat. And he didn't blink an eye. He thought it was a good idea.
Yeah. And to my knowledge, we've only received a narrative from only 1 council member. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would encourage, our council members and the mayor, if they're, as we go through this process, if there's things that concern them, that they bring that up to us. So let's move into,
I believe the email also said that he had it tentatively scheduled for the 18th for them to talk to us, yeah. As far as Steve Linder and the Bettendorf City Administrator, that they're coming on the 18th.
I don't know if they've been the invitation's formally been extended.
Let's see, it says scheduled or tentatively scheduled for the 18th.
Yep.
Yeah.
Would that be for Linder? I mean, for Shields, I'm sorry, for Mickey Shields.
Yes, I think so. Let's see, it says Mickey Shields Basin. So the Iowa League of Cities gentleman is on June 4th.
Oh, okay.
And then
That's good.
tentatively for the 18th is, I believe Pat Callahan, Steve Linder, and Decker Plowen.
What are we gonna do? Are we gonna basically dedicate the meeting to these guys?
I'm encouraging us to maybe not
Not?
extend that invitation.
Okay.
And I don't even know what the purpose of Shields would be. Mickey Shields with the League of Cities, I should be more exact.
I felt like when he was here the first time, he didn't get a chance to really go into things in depth. That's the only reason I'd be interested in him. And again, he's got the statewide perspective.
Maybe we wait till we get a little further along and then ask his opinion on kind of where we've ended up or
Clean up
Yeah.
some spots that we haven't
Yeah.
thought of.
might be,
Brian, I think it might be pertinent to, if we're gonna ask, some input, then we limit that to a section maybe, instead of just kind of opening up the whole book and saying, come in and talk to us about, the why we should do what with the charter, if we should maybe, if we're going to open that up to these folks, identify a section where we think we're stumped or we can't come to a, concession on something.
And, probably even the more efficient way, because we're only really spending 2 hours a month on this, would be if they have any concerns, just to write it out in an email and submit it to us, and then we can review it. I personally feel like that's the better use of our time, but,
I would agree with you there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I spoke with Chairman Vickers about, maybe having an opportunity in July for our council members, if they want to come and speak on the record, and the city administrator and the mayor, to give that opportunity in July. And I mean, those are the voices that I would rather hear from, and I would be okay with extending the conversation time more than 3 minutes, or dedicate a special meeting just for that. So
Okay.
I think does everybody have the consensus of that? Okay. So let's go, we're starting in the council on 2.03.
So I mentioned, I had made some brief edits, just a couple of quick ones that we could look at. I just didn't know who to send it to email-wise, so I got it here with me. I can send it, but
Yeah, I wonder that, can we print it somehow?
There should still be somebody in the office right over here.
how do I do that? I got like a little PFD that I just printed out what,
Yeah, I don't, what is the gentleman's name in the booth back there?
who's got the screen here?
I think it's the gentleman in the booth. I apologize.
That'd be Steven probably back there.
Steven. Josh, okay.
Can I send it
Josh,
to him?
can we send you something that then can be printed and copied for all of us in one of the offices here?
Or just shown on the screen?
Oh, yeah, you could do that, or just show it on the screen. Yep.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Wonderful. Thanks, Josh, for helping us on this.
So,
You have it as a piece of paper or PDF or?
I got a PDF. I'll send it to you. What email?
Got a USB drive? Here. Here's a USB drive.
I've got Josh's if you want to send it to me, Joe, and
What?
Well, I can just play it right here. Just
I'm sorry, I got a newfangled computer. Don't let me do that. I don't have one of those.
Security.
can we send it to your email, Josh?
Yeah, send it to my email.
Which is?
J. Hansen,
J-
JHANSEN, at cityofclintoniowa.net.
City of Clinton, Iowa.
Yep, IOWA.gov.
Appreciate you helping us there.
Coming at you, man.
So Pat O'Connell is online. Did he look over these then, that we did last time?
I didn't think that was, but
I think the only thing that he reviewed was, and it's in red, basically how we go down from 5 to,
oh,
and strike.
Because he's the first item on our agenda, isn't he?
Yeah, and I was just talking about the
Gotcha.
the thing that was striked out. So in my notes, we were through section 10.
Okay.
That's where I have in my mind.
We had finished section 10 and read it at the end. I had brought up about appointments, section 11. That's where we kind of dropped it.
Okay. Because the council may appoint a city manager.
Number 11, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think in the minutes, it talks about how we might want to mirror the prohibitions to Cedar Rapids'.
yeah. Brian, I had us picking up section, I believe it was 10 and 11, prohibitions, and in the minutes from last time. And
Yep.
then Joe had mentioned going right into the appointees and the city manager and how that, so kind of the homework was left to do those two sections to pick up where that ended last meeting.
And I like Cedar Rapids. When I initially went through all of them, I starred those, A and B.
You can move this mouse. I'll make that screen appear on the broadcast and it'll be recorded. So this screen will be recorded.
So city manager proposed changes, Joe? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah.
You see where the pointer's at?
I'm trying to get, okay. So where?
You might be able to do the wheel,
Is this your document here?
Yeah, it is. Just trying to,
just kind of
the
spin
mouse
the
will move
wheel.
here.
There we go.
There we go. Okay, so there's changes in in section 11, but then to go along with that, there's changes in 2.04 for the mayor. And then I think we'll have to do something in 2.05 for the city administrator. But, so if I, first here, changing A to, rather than the council appointing the city manager, what I'm proposing is the council shall confirm through a majority vote the mayor's nomination for city manager. And then also a new addition for B would be the council shall approve through majority vote the mayor's recommendation for compensation for the city manager. Then, if I can come down, man, this is very, very difficult here. Here we go. Painful. Down in the 2.03, I've added a G. This is under the mayor's,
Section?
yeah, it's under the mayor's section, but it's called his powers and duties. Okay? So that's under 4 point, then this would be G. And it would say, mayor may nominate a city manager, which is basically using the same language that it had for the city council. And then under that, the mayor shall have sole responsibility for the management, direction, and termination, if necessary, of the city manager. The mayor shall annually evaluate the performance of the city manager, and the mayor shall recommend to council the compensation for the city manager. And that's all, and then I didn't know what the heck to do with 2.05. I just crossed it out.
Okay.
I think we need to look at that wording a little bit.
So for me, on G1, can you kind of go more in depth on that, what you're,
Okay,
so the sole terminations, you're saying the mayor could terminate the city manager?
So if, I guess here's the concept. I think the city manager has to have somebody who's managing them, who's an elected official. And what I did was I kind of thought about how the U.S. government works, okay? And basically, the executive president nominates his cabinet members, and Senate will approve those. So I use the same concept for this, is basically the mayor is the boss, okay? So in that particular case, he has the power to nominate, and then the council approves or rejects. And then he has the power, basically, to manage and direct the city manager. And in the case that you need to terminate, he has the power of termination. And that mirrors what the president can do with his council, or his cabinet. So that's kind of what I pictured that as. It seems to me from what I've read that this arrangement with the mayor and the council is very similar to that relationship, right? The mayor cannot vote. He's not a voting member. Same with the president. He's not a voting member in Congress. So I tried to mirror it to that. And And this way, we have somebody who's an elected official who is able to direct the city manager and provide supervision. I mean, we all have a boss, and that's how we get direction on what we need to do.
Sure.
And since the mayor is an elected official, I thought that was an appropriate way to do it. So that's open for comment for you guys.
What would happen if the mayor was directing or managing the city manager against the wishes of the city council?
But all the ordinances and resolutions would still be voted on by the council.
He still has to behave within the laws and ordinances of the community, right? Same with the President of the United States.
Well, do you have an example of that, Bill?
I'm just thinking that maybe the mayor has it out for the city manager of some way and is possibly directing them in, I don't know, some situation, and maybe the city council would think, they would be siding more on the city manager side and think the direction by the mayor would be incorrect.
I guess to put it a different way, and if I'm paraphrasing incorrectly, let me know. Does the council have the ability to override the decision of the mayor to terminate?
Before we go any further with this discussion, because I think this is the heart of what we're going to be talking about, maybe for the next couple of meetings. I did a lot of research on this. I've read all the other, and done some others, and there's some things here I want to pass out because it's pertinent to exactly what Joe and Bill are talking about. The first thing is an actual city ordinance that is actually existing for Clinton. And it says here that the mayor is the chief executive officer, and I'm going to pass this out so you can,
Okay, so in our ordinance, we've already said he's the boss.
right.
Okay.
If you'd each take one of those.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And
That's
then-
the duties of the alternate member.
Apparently, but that's much
Dave's the
appreciated.
passer outer today.
I'll second that motion.
So
Thanks, Dave.
what I did is looked at 2.04, which is what Joe is talking about here. The first paragraph, I inserted the city ordinance, and this is I'll just pass these out.
And guys, I just wrote this down to try and get some conversation going. I'm sure the wording is messed up, but I wanted to at least get something
Oh, I
we
got
can
one.
talk about.
Thank you, though.
Well, and I think this is where, this is gonna, as Rich said, this is
The heart of
this is gonna be the meat of the discussion.
I think one important note is that there already is an existing city ordinance that names the mayor the CEO. That is not reflected in the charter. It was probably done after the charter was written.
So it's right there as A on that sheet you handed out.
Correct. Thank you very much. The second thing,
Rich, did you pull that off of chapter 1772? Because that one was adopted in 84.
I didn't print the whole page, but it came out of the section of the ordinance where it talks about the mayor's term of office and powers and duties. On the website, it's 31.002. But I
31 point,
it should be on that sheet that you have.
okay. Yep.
So, you might want to take a minute and read this because it brings up, it addresses part of what Bill's bringing up, and everything else from, as you can see, I say in bold, the above paragraph comes from the existing city ordinance. Everything below that is my proposal for wording in this section.
Well, and if you look at appointments, it does already kind of lay out there, the mayor shall appoint a mayor pro tem and shall also appoint with the approval of the council the following officials. So it would kind of then shift under the same kind of, we could add it to that list.
Is that C? Are you,
I was looking under 31.003 appointments. It talks about all the appointments that the mayor makes, but what I'm just throwing out there for discussion is that if we talk about kind of what Joe was mentioning, and then I have a hard time calling you by your first name.
Rich.
I know, but I've known you so
couldn't
long.
remember Pat, so-
I know. Well, but no, I don't like to call you your first name. I like to call you Mr. Phelan. But
That was my dad.
okay. So my discussion item here would just be that if we were looking at it, how it's been presented, that it would be a good segue that we could add it to the list of appointments, that it does say the mayor gets to appoint that individual with the approval of the council.
okay.
Yeah. That would be a change to ordinance.
Yeah, I don't think we got that power, right?
Well, we don't, but the charter will suggest that in effect. And I think Aaron's made a good point there.
But to go back to the question that was raised, the council may not agree necessarily with what the mayor instructs the city manager to do. But they have the power to make the ordinances. There are ordinances and laws and that we abide by within Clinton, and the mayor has to abide by those. He's going to have to meet the budget, all that sort of thing. So there are constraints that the mayor is held to. But that's a fact. If we were to go this way, he could be doing something that maybe the rest of the council doesn't agree to. But I guess I'm proposing that that's better than not having anybody direct a person who's not an elected official. So,
Well, and it keeps going back to, you need to make sure that you have individuals that listen to their community and are representing the people they were elected to represent, that if you're an elected official, you have however many bosses are in your city if you're all at large. So 25,000 people, that's who you're answering to, which is a whole different dynamic than I have one boss or.
well, yeah, but in this particular case, I think it's necessary to have one.
Oh, I'm
voice.
agreeing. Yes,
Okay.
I'm agreeing. But that's what I'm saying, that it's important that you find quality candidates, and I think we can do that easier if we go from 7 to 5, which we've already discussed and voted on. That when you're finding quality individuals that are representative of your city and doing the research and the work, the good will rise to the top. Even if the city administrator is answering to the mayor, they still have to go through the council to get anything through or voted on or approved.
So Joe, would you be suggesting that the mayor would then be a full-time, mayor would be full-time versus it's currently part-time?
That's a different discussion. I haven't given that enough thought yet.
The approach I took was that the council would have the final authority, but that the mayor would be significantly involved. And if you read over what I said, act as primary point of supervision of the city manager or administrator, while still seeking input and advice from the council. I'm paraphrasing here. There's been, needs for an annual review. By the way, can we agree, and does anybody know for sure, because the ordinances aren't clear and the home rule charter isn't clear, do we have a city manager or a city administrator? I think we need to figure that out before we go start rewriting this. And, the mayor,
In the home rule charter, it calls it a manager.
right, and there's some places in the ordinances that I've looked at that calls them an administrator, so I don't know that,
Is it the same thing?
I think it is.
Tomato, tomato?
I would think that'd be
there is
easy
a
enough to.
document that does state that the term is interchangeable.
Okay.
I can't put my finger on that document right now, though.
That's all right.
But that could even just be a cleanup as far as, let's make sure we
That's
just
not-
have consistency.
Just another thought here, if we go down this path, whether that the mayor is that chief executive officer, I know it is already stated, we'll need to discuss in the event that there is not a city administrator or manager in place, they leave or whatever. The police chief, as of right now, the police chief would be the acting backup for that. So in the event, we would have to take some of the precautions that are already in the city code or our ordinances of how that gets replaced. So we would just need to, does the mayor then step in until, we have a search committee and things like that? There's some other pieces that need to be resolved if we go down this path.
I guess, just to add a little bit more context here, my thoughts is the same comment I made when we were talking about 7 versus 5. You need, when you're making ordinances and that sort of thing, you need some diversity of thought, but the idea is to be efficient and to be able to make good decisions a bit quicker. We brought up about how voting has fallen off, participation from the community has dropped. A way to keep the community involved in the city government is to basically be able to show them that, hey, we get things done, right? And if we have a lot of debate and a whole lot of people involved, things get slowed down. If we don't have a boss directing people like the city administrator on what needs to be done, the agenda of the mayor, the agenda of the council gets slowed down, and we're seen as not being able to get things done.
And responsive to the community.
Right, so I think we need to set this up for success so that, the government can get things done.
Sure.
And if we have a balance of power, like what seems to work in the United States, here in Clinton, it should have a pretty good chance of working.
Joe, why don't you go back up to the top? Let's go back up to the top of that document.
This is slow.
Before we get to that point, I need to express a concern that, my impression of this discussion, that's all valid discussion, is that we are significantly rewriting the powers of the mayor. And is that within the scope of what we're called to do?
Not entirely true. That's why I passed out the city ordinance. City ordinance says the mayor is the chief executive officer of the, it's in that document that you got.
Paragraph 4.
Yeah, in the ordinance, it's 31.002A.
Yeah, I know that what he's called, but I'm looking at a practical matter. Have, in recent history, has any mayors acted in the fashion that we're discussing?
I'm not sure if I understand the question.
Has any mayor acted in the way and utilized, we're basically saying you direct the city administrator, you and you alone, because you're the CEO of the city. And I'm encouraging that we look backwards and look at our most successful mayors and most successful periods of time with working relationships between the council and the mayor and the city manager. And what did that look like, and how could that be impacted by some of these, I think, rather significant changes that we're discussing?
I think.
And maybe we get there anyway, but
Yep.
this is, my sense is that this is substantially different than the way things are today. And
So-
maybe that's okay.
From what Rich has brought forward, I feel like the change to paragraph 4 that he's proposed in section 2.04, paragraph 4, letter A, I feel like that's almost a cleanup, because we're trying to mirror what we already have in an ordinance, that our home rule charter needs to mirror what the city has already voted on. So that particular part of as acting of the chief executive officer is already an ordinance.
And the rest of what I wrote, John, is maybe a middle point between what I'm suggesting, what Joe's suggesting, is that the council still has ultimate authority, but the mayor is the point. And I think somewhere in here.
Well, and I think the important thing with that is that the mayor doesn't have a vote.
Correct.
So they can be leading in a direction and working with the city administrator towards what their particular goals are, but at the end of the day, they don't have a vote, but it's somebody that is the boss of the administrator.
Right, and I get that, and I get the benefits of having a single point of contact from a managerial standpoint. My personal preference is that the council have the final say on termination. And I think.
Well, that's what I wrote in the very
Right,
last
I
paragraph.
agree, but that's not, I mean, that's where I would go.
I guess, just to counter that, if you're the boss and you give somebody instruction and they say no, what do?
And that has happened in the past.
I mean, if I tell my boss no, I'm gonna probably hit the gate.
And I appreciate where you're coming from, but with all due respect, city government is not a business. And so there needs, I think out of necessity, there needs to be an extra layer of process that goes through when we have insubordination, which is what you're talking about. If the city manager does not follow through with what he's been instructed to do, and the mayor says, that's it, I want to terminate you, then the council needs to be able to have the final say on that.
Is it currently a simple majority, or is it a supermajority? It's a simple, isn't it?
I think it's simple.
So maybe what we need to look at in that regard is that it would take a supermajority to overrule.
Okay, like a council could veto the mayor's action.
Kind of.
Have we had a city administrator fired in recent history?
Yeah, I mean,
Well, not actually, but there were a couple that were forced to resign.
if I look, I mean, you're gonna have different people in these roles over the years. I mean, if I look at the people that are in the roles right now, there's some really great guys. I mean, we got a really good mayor, and we got a pretty damn good city manager. Matt does a great job. It's just, I think what I'm trying to propose is that we set something up such that there's a good, solid chain of command. And, you know, if I'm the boss, I have the ability to tell you what you need to do, give you a performance review, and if you're not improving, to terminate you if necessary. I mean, that's a typical responsibility of a boss.
So how does anybody know, Matt, do you remember, like, so when Matt was hired, he applies for it, who recommends him to be city
I've sat on that
manager?
committee before.
So there's a committee that recommends?
Yeah, so they send us the list of applicants, and we interviewed all of them, and we rated them. And I believe we passed 3 names onto the council for consideration. Then the council interviewed those top 3, and then the council voted who they wanted.
In a top secret, in a closed session meeting?
I don't know that much.
The final wasn't a closed, I don't know about if they had a closed discussion, I don't remember.
I don't remember either. I wasn't part of it was back when Jessica Kinzer was selected, was when I helped with that process.
Because, Joe, you're suggesting that the mayor nominates the city manager in 11A, correct? And then the council would confirm it?
Right, basically, if they disagreed with his appointment, they'd say no by a simple majority, and that's a done deal. He's gonna have to find somebody else.
And that's basically what I've tried to say in this very last paragraph here, is the council has the ultimate authority. Mayor makes the recommendation.
So to hire him, the city council has the final say. Then after that, he's the guy who instructs them how to, what to do. And if termination were something that came about, he would be the guy to terminate them. Then they got to go through that process all over again to pick a new one. I mean, just if you think about it from a practical standpoint, it's not like you're going to go fire somebody just because you don't like them, because you're going to have to go through a pretty rigorous process. I would assume that a good leader, a good mayor, is going to involve the city council when he does interviews for a city manager anyhow. I mean, that's just common sense. But I guess I'm not proposing that has to be the case.
Well,
But for termination, are you suggesting that only the mayor have the power to terminate?
Yes. Yes.
I have a
I'm
question.
saying it differently, Bill, that the mayor will advise the council on hiring and removal decisions.
I've been advised by my parents to do a lot of things, and I never took them up on it.
Well,
Richard Nixon advised the firing of the Attorney General when he was up for charges. He fired him. I think it goes back to your council should, if the mayor advises, probably the council's probably gonna go for it. But at the same time, I don't know if just one person having, I mean, I get where you're coming from, Joe, but I think if we are representing 25,000 people, that maybe the council there should be some kind of provision written in there.
I would also say that even most people think that the city administrator is an elected position in this city.
Yeah, probably.
I have a question. Who's in charge of the fire chief and the police chief? If they were to do something illegal, say, and get rid of them?
Sean, do you want to address that?
Yeah, so the administrator oversees them, but to actually remove them, that takes council to remove them from those positions. So the administrator would recommend that the removal of that, they can't technically, the police chief, fire chief can't be removed without council approval.
So I would like to hear Sean's take on this as a former council member, and as a former city attorney, I would like to hear Matt's take on all of it as well.
So I do think the way our structure was set up with the powers lying with the council, I do feel that the council should, unless we change completely the whole way we have powers from the city, right? Then with not being a strong, or right now we're not a strong mayoral operation. The powers lie with the council. Sorry about that. I do think that is a good way to move forward. But I still think the power should stay there so long as the mayor recommends a removal or a reprimand, that it needs to have the council backing, or the council take an action on something like that. But I do think it also does streamline work. I was there when we hired Matt, and we did it differently. I think, Aaron, you said you were there when they hired Jessica. Jessica was an internal candidate. Matt was external. We had about 7 candidates. We developed a different process through the use of an interim city administrator and kind of a source selection group. Dick Schrod worked us through that, but we had interviews with, we selected 3 candidates to come in and do interviews, and there was, I want to say, 7 to maybe 10 in each group. That we kind of did round robin. Everybody went around, they got to sit with each group, and then each of those groups basically did a kind of a positive negative chart on each one of these candidates, and then at the end of that interview day, they were able to get together and talk about it, and then recommendation came to kind of the council, and council then talked about it a little bit further, and then chose obviously to hire Matt at the time. So that process, I think, was a little unique than the city has done previously.
Yeah, I was
That
involved
seemed,
in that.
everybody seemed to like that process. They felt like there was a lot of community involvement. We have people from nonprofits, from the school, just normal community members. I think that seemed to go well. So I think it would be difficult, a little bit, I guess there is a little bit of difficulty for just the mayor to find a candidate, because it does take some, I guess, a lot of homework to find these candidates. We've used Dick and his group before. It just took a long time to go through that process.
Okay, what were you going to say, Matt? Your microphone's not on either.
Yeah, thanks, Sean. Yeah, I always kind of go back philosophically, like in the back of my mind is always, I think one of our main goals is to try to create a mechanism that makes our government more responsive to the voters. And when I, look back at this sheet, I think we made a lot of progress with the wards and at large and that, scenario. I think the fear is, what if there is a kind of a rogue mayor that gets elected and, through the power of just their decision, they could kind of wreak havoc in the city administrator position. And every 4 years, there's an election. When we compare how many of those mayoral elections were contested versus uncontested, there was actually only one, and that was 2 years ago. All the other ones were contested, and there was even 2 runoffs. And the last one that wasn't contested was probably because the electors were happy with who they had, and anybody else who was thinking of running probably decided, well, maybe I won't. But, I think, John, were you asking earlier if there's any other cities that have this scenario, or
No.
or you're asking about the history in Clinton?
Right.
I think and before my time, but I heard stories that there were mayors who, even though they didn't have that power in the ordinance, they kind of acted with that power, and the council respected that, and they kind of followed the lead of the mayor. And if the mayor recommended that the council take a certain action, she or he had, the power to be able to do that, and they respected her or him, and, kind of followed with what they recommended, to do in certain situations, where it could have been scenarios or situations where the mayor did not have that power through the ordinance, but just through the level of respect that I think they earned, that the council would follow. So I guess that I don't have, I mean, this is a real thinker, Joe. This is the meat on the bones, I guess. It's a real thinker. I really don't have a position one way or the other yet. My fear would be, if a rogue mayor gets elected, I suppose then we'd have 4 years of.
But Matt, we'd have the
What
opportunity,
if
if someone
we-
was really crazy, you could recall them or petition to have them removed, couldn't you? I mean, if someone was
I don't
really
know about
radical.
that. Yeah, and I don't know what that recall.
Well, what if we hired
Scenario
a
would
rogue
be, or-
administrator?
That's what I was just going to say.
See, and that's where I was trying to find a balance, where the councils would ultimately have,
Well, and a city administrator has a lot of power.
yeah.
They really, truly do.
Well, they have, and I think it's $50,000
Yes,
blank check writing, right?
yes.
And that's a lot of money to
He's the
me.
guy that's making stuff happen, right? I
Right.
mean,
But my point being that there has to be somebody that person answers to.
right.
Just so that I can, we've only received one, we've only been reached out to one council member, and I don't know where that is on the official record. I don't know where that is.
What's that?
From Cody, that he emailed us back on April 16th, but
It was entered into the,
I know, but I don't know if the public knows where that's at. So I just want to read what he put. Strengthening the mayor's role. Clinton's current system renders the mayor largely ceremonial, with limited authority and no control over department heads or the city administrator. I believe that the elected mayor should have more direct authority over key personnel decisions. At a minimum, the ability to hire and remove the city administrator with council confirmation, similar to the city administrator's authority and department heads. This isn't about micromanaging staff, but rather about ensuring that the person elected by the people can actually lead. Right now, 5 or 7, quote, bosses on council often means there's no clear boss at all. In my experience, this often leads to confusion, inaction, or diluted accountability. Empowering the mayor to act more like an executive while still being accountable to the council and public would improve both leadership and transparency. And I'd have to agree with Cody's
Well, and
two-paragraph
that
there.
says, too, that with the council's backing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes, it
And
did.
I like that. And I encourage the other council members, if they're paying attention, and the mayor and the city administrator to, reach out to us and give us your thoughts on this. So,
Yeah, and the thought might be, I feel like it's good how it is, but still, share your thoughts, yes.
so I just wanted to make sure we put that in I know it's in some record, but I kind of wanted it on YouTube for those that,
Yeah, it was a
Good.
good piece, yeah.
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 And I think in the future, if there's other things that we need to read out quickly, we should do that as well. We got about 10 minutes before we've hit the hour mark.
Can I maybe just make this, I guess, point of clarification too? So by ordinance alone, we're calling the mayor the CEO. I guess in one way to protect against that, you can have the council review that ordinance and can strip those powers from a rogue mayor, right? I mean, so that's just a thought. That, you've got built-in protection. The council does have the final authority. I don't just kind of brainstorming there, but I do think that the council power, at the end of the day, should lie with the council, but there does need to be that intermediary.
Sean, do you think it would make sense to shift that verbiage that's in the code into our home rule charter then as well? Because now
I
the
think
home
it
rule.
should, yeah, it really probably should align.
Yeah.
It's more congruent, that would be more congruent that way.
Can we, if we want to try to feel like we've accomplished something today, I would make a motion that we align those two items, 4A and 31.002, powers and duties that already is in the Iowa code, letter A there. I feel like we need to align those to what the code says in our home rule charter.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I'd second it.
Yeah, we
So
make that a little more
to
clear.
be clear.
Yeah.
We're gonna add what's already in the ordinance.
It's right here,
In section,
31.0.
31.002,
Can somebody read that?
yes. It's, in addition to the powers and duties set out in the Home Rule Charter, as set out in this code of ordinances, the powers and duties of the mayor are as follows. A, chief executive officer acts as chief executive officer of the city and presiding officer of the council, and except for supervisory duties which have been delegated by law to the city manager or administrator, supervise all city officers and departments. It goes on to things that are,
So that would replace 4A, the mayor is the official representative of the city. So my motion is to replace that one single line with the paragraph that was just read.
Can I ask one question? Because if I understand this correctly, it's everything except the city manager.
that is confusing the way it's written, but it's not the way I interpret it. What that means is that the council could write ordinances to give power directly to the administrator or manager.
I took it as the city manager is who the department heads report to,
Right.
so it's just laying that out.
That's not clear to me. I mean, the way that reads to me is it's except for
The
supervisory
supervised duties which have been delegated by law to a city manager.
Right, which basically says he doesn't have jurisdiction over the city manager. So if I guess if we were gonna propose some wording, I mean, unless that's the way you guys
Well,
wanna do
and
it.
I'm just wanting to align our home rule charter with our current ordinance
And that's.
in that particular paragraph.
Yep.
This is 11A of the city council?
No, it's,
It's on this one that was handed out.
Yeah, but where does that tie into our charter, though, Aaron?
We would be under section 2.04 mayor,
Yep.
item 4, letter A.
correct. And what Joe's clarification is that he's asking for is what I tried to address in the bottom half and the back of this page. And it may not be strong enough, so we might want to look at that.
So what goes first, the Iowa Code or the home rule charter?
Well, the home rule charter is our constitution.
I
if
know.
you will. So, I mean, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the ordinances don't always agree with the home rule charter, and that's council decision.
Right, but we have, I guess, minimum, we have to align with the Iowa Code and then our charter. We can't have anything, I shouldn't say this, and we should default to Pat on this, but outside of our charter, that's not an agreement with the Iowa Code.
I think this discussion of how we align the city manager and the mayor and council is going to take more time. All Aaron is suggesting is that first paragraph replace 4A, 2.04 4A.
Inside the charter. Is that correct?
Correct, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm gonna just toss another thought out. Conceptually, how we'd like to lay this out, I think if we all can kind of get around conceptually where we want to be with this, then we can work on the wording. If we work on the wording and then try and back out to conceptually where we're at, I mean, conceptually right now, we're not all in the same place. And I think that's where we really need to focus. So I think it needs more discussion
Yeah.
as to where we're at.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with that.
And I'd like
But-
to hear more input from the council, the mayor, and the,
So I will also say that that paragraph is also what is in Iowa Code.
From the ordinance.
Yes.
What isn't clear in that paragraph, though, is the actual reporting relationships. And I think that's where we need to, it's very simple, and this is part of what Joe was trying to say. You can't have 7 bosses, because then you have no boss.
right.
And that is the heart of what I think, 2 things that I thought were really important coming into this whole effort was to discuss and come up with a proper size for the council, and I think we've come to an agreement on that. And that they be all at large. The second thing that I thought was most important is dealing with this, that, you know, if you have a really strong city administrator, 7 bosses can't manage that. There's got to be a single point of input, I guess. But I think Joe's right. We probably ought to nail down that concept first.
Yep. Which I'm fine with. I was just making the motion that we align that particular bullet point with what our ordinance and Iowa Code says, but we don't have to do that today.
I think we're closer than we might think. I think if we almost said it before and all the heads were moving in the right direction, that don't we want the council to have the final say on termination? Not the first say, but the final say. And if we agree on that, then the mayor being the day-to-day point person and the boss, I don't think there's any objection to that.
No. I like Joe's wording. I just wanted to make it clear that the city council should have the final say. I'm satisfied with that. I think the wording is fine. Yeah, I can move forward.
So,
Can I ask a question? When we say the city council, is that a simple majority or, I did like an option of maybe, you said what was it, a super majority?
so, and I only say that because I know now how it is. It's a majority to get someone terminated. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sean. So it would
Yeah,
take.
they just have to have a majority vote.
So what I was also saying that it's, if we wanted to back into it from the other direction, that if the mayor was recommending termination, it would take a supermajority to stop that termination.
I think that makes sense. If you've got the mayor now kind of running point there, and they're recommending a termination, but there's, let's say that we had that rogue mayor who's, well, we're terminating him, right? I think the council with the supermajority can stop that. I
So
think
that would,
makes sense.
so, okay, so
4 out of 5.
we're not 7 now, what was that, 4 out of 5?
3.
Well, that would be a
That's
majority.
That's just a
No,
majority.
that's true, it is 4 out of
So you
5.
do
So-
the 4 out of 5.
And,
To go against the termination, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Not approve the termination.
so, and maybe a majority, maybe a supermajority, but that's what I was saying with a vote to the council, that it wouldn't be we're voting to terminate. It's the mayor has suggested termination for these reasons, and the vote is whether or not to allow him to terminate.
Is the supermajority in play in other aspects of the council mayor?
To overcome a veto.
Well, then we have consistency there,
Yes.
which I like.
Because the veto, yeah, because
The
the
veto
mayor says
requires
we're
a
not going to do
supermajority.
whatever, yeah.
Yeah. I
So
like that.
I'm getting the temperature of the room. We're a little after 5 here, and I want to be cognizant of our time. I'm getting the temperature from us that we like that the city manager reports to the mayor. The mayor could terminate and would have to have a majority or supermajority to override that termination.
A majority to approve and a supermajority to override the mayor's recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I think.
I could buy that, that's better than what I put
Okay,
down.
I'm going to withdraw my previous motion that was on the table.
Well, and I just think, I think we just use this
withdraw my
as,
second.
it's kind of comparable to my straw poll
Yes.
before we ended the last meeting, and I think we have time to kind
Yeah,
of think
I
about
agree.
it. And I think we're pretty much,
Is anyone uncomfortable with that?
Sean, what do you think about that?
He's
You there?
speechless.
Yep.
Sorry. No, I guess, I think I'm comfortable, I guess, where we're heading, so.
Okay. And I think the only person that's not here that, isn't nodding his head is Dave. That's why I just asked you, just wanted to see what, if you were nodding or if you're, not excited about it.
No, from what I gather though, Aaron, she kind of withdrew her motion, is that
I did.
correct? Did I
Yes.
get that correct?
Yes. I'm making notes too for you, Sean.
Okay.
Can Joe send us this so that we can see it? And then, Joe, you might, before you send it, insert the termination with supermajority override.
If you guys want me to, I'll take a crack, I'll go back in the Word document, try and capture what we talked about here, and
Yep.
then
Well,
we
and
look at it next week.
Sure.
Or next meeting.
I would also use Rich's form that he has, because they're very, very similar. And I think putting them together and with the things we discussed.
Yeah.
Who do I send it to? Because I know,
I'd send to Sean.
Sean? Okay, I'll send it to Sean and,
Yeah, if you would please.
okay.
Through the transcript of the meeting inside the Teams, I can send you word for word if you want me to send that.
I'm assuming, once Pat gets a little draft of this, he'll have some insight as well.
I will not be at the June 4th meeting, but I am, I'm very comfortable with what you guys are talking about. And again, remember too, for us that are not going to be here, some meetings, once this thing gets completely written, there's going to be a chance for us to line item
Right.
chat about it. So it's not like, it's not like this, once this is done, this isn't set in stone. I mean,
Yep.
we have we have time to review this, and it could be, we might go, there could be somebody 2 weeks, hey, did you think about this? No, we didn't, you know, and that's, we can be flexible.
I think Josh was trying to tell us something.
I said the meeting has a transcript, so that it'll have all the words that you can copy and paste and look at.
AI.
Okay, good.
Wow, yeah, if you could send, do you have that for the other meetings also?
It's some of them are turned on, some are turned off, but I was gonna make a policy to make it on all of them, it's useful.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
John, you had something you were gonna,
Sean, did you hear what Josh was saying?
No, he must have had his mic off.
He, basically, he's offering to send us the transcripts of the meeting. That would be helpful for you, too.
Yeah, great. Love it.
I also just received a text from Dave that he's not comfortable with that, so.
With what?
It just, he says, no, I am not comfortable, so.
Okay, so, I mean, we're gonna have more discussion.
Yeah, and I assume he'll be back here on the 4th, so. And we
I,
didn't vote on anything, Dave. I know you're watching it, and we're just kind of more getting the temperature of the room for that.
Well, I think we have a broad consensus, let's put it that way.
Sure.
yeah, but we don't have all the players in the room. I mean, I think we got to where we are because we had some discussion. Dave hasn't been able to participate.
Yeah.
and I-
Yep.
I think we owe it
Absolutely.
Yeah.
to make sure.
Well, and
we
I think
hear
there's
that.
going to be numerous points where we don't all agree, and that's why we will vote on things, and hopefully it's something we can all, in the end, get behind, because we've helped with all the building blocks of it.
Does anybody have anything else for the good of the cause?
Our next meeting is
June 4th?
I'm gonna be on a Route 66 trip with Mom, so, my intentions are to call in, but if I don't have internet, I might not make it, but I will forward what we talked about
Yep.
here today, so that we got something to start from.
and there are places on Route 66 where you will not have connection.
Ain't that the truth?
That is true.
Great. Anything else? Seeing none?